In the far edge of the galaxy there was a lonely planet, a world where storms cut the sky and the ground trembled with every rumble of thunder. In the heart of that planet stood a mountain so high its peak vanished into the clouds. Inside that mountain was a cave older than any city, and inside the cave lay something greater than time itself, an ancient dragon. Her hide was cracked with age, her wings folded like broken sails. Once she had flown through the stars, fighting great battles against enemies who feared her fire. Once her roar had made even kings bow, but now she lay silent, her scales dry, her body too weak to rise. She waited for the end. She waited for silence. For centuries, no one had dared to enter the cave. Legends spread across worlds. They said a great beast slept there. Some called her a god. Some called her a curse. All agreed on one thing: no one should disturb her. Yet rumors always draw the curious, and one day, a ship came from the stars and landed on the dusty plains. The ship was small, weak compared to the great vessels that passed through the galaxy. From it stepped a human, a simple explorer named Daniel. He was not a soldier, not a king, just a man searching for rare metals in the mountain. His people were known as fragile creatures, small in size, soft in skin. Yet humans had one strange thing that other species did not. They never stopped being curious. Daniel walked into the mountain with a lamp in one hand and a scanner in the other. His footsteps echoed in the dark. He felt the weight of silence pressing on his chest. Still he went deeper, step by step. The air grew warmer. The ground cracked beneath his boots. Then he saw it, a shape too large to believe. Wings folded, head resting on stone, and an eye that looked like it could swallow him whole if it opened. He froze, his heart thundered inside his chest. Every story he had ever heard told him to run, to escape. But his legs refused to move. Instead, he stared at her, at the massive creature that filled the cavern. Her scales were gray and broken. Dust lay on her body like snow. Her breathing was slow, heavy like the wind of an old storm. Daniel whispered without thinking, "You are real." The dragon's eyelid moved. A faint glow came from within, and then one giant eye opened. It burned like fire trapped in a crystal. It looked at him, not with hunger but with something deeper. Like memory, like pain. For a long moment neither moved. The silence stretched until the mountain itself seemed to wait. Then a voice filled the cave. It was not a sound in the air. It was a voice inside his mind, deep and ancient. "Why have you come here, human?" Daniel stumbled back, his lamp almost fell from his hand. His throat was dry, but he forced himself to answer. "I was searching for metal. I did not know you were here." The dragon's eye narrowed, a spark of anger flashing. "No one comes here by mistake. This place has been left to silence. Why do you disturb me?" Her voice made his bones shake. He felt like an ant standing before a storm, yet something in him refused to bow. He saw the cracks in her wings, the broken hide, the tired breath. She was not just a beast, she was suffering. He took a small step forward instead of backward. His voice trembled, but his words were steady. "I mean you no harm." The dragon tilted her head, dust falling from her horns. For a creature who could crush him with one claw, she seemed curious. Her fire did not burn him. Instead, she studied him like a puzzle. "You are small, fragile, yet you walk toward me. Do you not fear death?" Daniel almost laughed. His fear was real, sharp, but something stronger pushed against it. "I do fear it. But fear is not enough reason to turn away." For the first time in many years, the dragon felt something stir inside her chest. A flicker of warmth. She remembered the old days, when brave souls had spoken to her not as a monster but as an equal. Her eyes softened, though her voice stayed heavy. "You are foolish, human. Many have feared me. Many have tried to kill me. None have dared stand so close." Daniel's hand moved to the small pouch on his belt. He carried many tools, but his fingers brushed against a small vial of healing oil. He always kept it for burns and wounds during mining. He looked at the cracked wings, and for a strange reason he thought of using it. He did not act yet, but the thought was planted. He stared at her massive body, broken but still powerful, and something inside whispered that maybe, just maybe, she was not meant to end here alone. The cave trembled slightly, rocks falling from the ceiling. Outside, the wind howled like a warning. The dragon's eye closed halfway, as if the effort of speaking had drained her. Yet her last words in that moment burned inside Daniel's mind. "You should leave, small one, before this mountain becomes your grave." But Daniel did not move. He stood in the shadow of the ancient dragon, knowing his life could end in a single breath, and yet His heart told him this meeting was not an accident. It was the beginning of something greater, something dangerous, something that would change not only his life but perhaps the fate of the stars themselves. And in that silent, trembling cave, man and dragon faced each other, neither knowing that the galaxy itself would soon echo with their story. Under the broken ceiling of the mountain cave, the human did not run. He stood before the ancient dragon, her wings cracked like dry earth, her breath heavy like a storm about to fade. Most beings would have escaped, but Daniel stayed. His eyes did not see only a monster. They saw pain. He stepped closer, each movement slow. The dragon tilted her massive head, one eye glowing like fire trapped in stone. Her voice pressed into his mind again, deep and rough. You remain. Even when death waits above you, why? Daniel swallowed hard, his heart beat so fast he felt dizzy. But his voice was steady. Because I see you are hurt, and I cannot turn away. The dragon let out a sound between a growl and a laugh. The cave walls shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. You think you can help me? A creature so small, so soft, with nothing but a lamp and trembling hands. Her words were sharp, but her tone carried a shadow of something else, tiredness. Almost hope. Daniel's hand reached into his belt pouch. He pulled out a small vial filled with a golden oil. He had used it many times on machines, on wounds, on burns from plasma fire. The oil healed slowly but strongly. It kept broken things alive a little longer. He looked up at the dragon's massive wings. Scales cracked, the membrane dry like old parchment. The sight filled him with something strange. Not fear, but sadness. He did not see a monster. He saw a warrior who had lost everything. He walked even closer, until the heat of her body wrapped around him like a furnace. The dragon's eye narrowed. One step more, human, and I may end you. Daniel's voice was soft but firm. Then end me, but if you do not, let me try. The cave was silent except for the sound of her breath. For a long moment she studied him, this tiny figure daring to challenge her silence. Then slowly she lowered one wing, the broken surface stretching before him like a wall of ancient stone. Daniel uncorked the vial. His hands trembled, but he pressed them against her hide. The oil spread in a thin shine across her cracked scales. It smelled of earth and smoke, and under his touch, the dragon's body shivered, her eye widened, a flash of gold rippling in the fire within. For centuries no one had touched her. No one had dared. The warmth of his hand, small yet steady, was more shocking than any weapon. Her voice entered his mind again, but softer, almost uncertain. Why do you do this, human? What do you gain? Daniel answered without looking up, still rubbing the oil across the damaged wing. I don't gain, I give. You should not die like this, not forgotten. Not alone. The dragon closed her eye for a moment. Memory stirred, flames of battles long past. The faces of those who once rode beside her. All gone now, yet this fragile creature, this human, reminded her of something she thought was dead. Trust. The oil seeped into her hide, and though the cracks did not vanish, she felt a faint relief, a warmth spreading through her tired body. Her muscles loosened, her pain eased just slightly. You are strange, she whispered, the words trembling inside his mind. Before Daniel could answer, the ground shook violently. A sound rolled through the cave like thunder. The dragon's head lifted, her eyes burning bright again. No, not thunder, she growled. Engines. Daniel's stomach turned cold. He ran to the cave mouth and looked into the stormy sky. Dark shapes cut through the clouds, ships descending with weapons glowing red. The dragon's chest rumbled. Hunters, she said, her voice filled with both rage and sorrow. They have come for me again. Daniel stared at the ships, then back at her massive form. He felt the weight of fear pressing on him, but he did not step back. He clenched the vial in his hand, the last drops of oil still glimmering. If the hunters were coming, they would not only take the dragon, they would kill him too. But something inside him refused to abandon her. Not now, not after touching her broken wings. The dragon lowered her head toward him, her eye burning like the heart of a star. Run, human. Save yourself while you can. But Daniel shook his head. His voice was low but unshaken. No, I stay. And in that instant, when the storm of engines filled the sky, the bond between man and dragon began. Fragile but unbreakable, the night sky above the mountain turned red, not from fire but from the glow of descending ships. Their engines roared like angry thunder, shaking the cave walls. Daniel stood frozen at the entrance, his lamp flickering as the storm of lights filled the heavens. Behind him, the dragon's breath deepened. Her single eye glowed brighter, reflecting the ships like mirrors of flame. She knew that sound. She had heard it long ago in other battles, other hunts. Her voice filled the cave with a heavy truth. Hunters, Daniel's chest tightened. He had heard the stories, nomads who traveled from world to world, killing great beasts for their hides. They sold scales, claws, wings, turned life into trophies. And now they had come here for her and maybe for him too. The first ship landed on the plains, its claws digging into the dirt. Then another and another, until the mountain base burned with their lights. Daniel counted at least 10. He knew more were above the clouds. Circling like vultures, the dragon lowered her head, dust falling from her horns. Leave now, human, you cannot fight them. They will kill you before they even see your face. Daniel looked back at her cracked wings, at the faint shimmer of oil still glistening where his hands had touched. He clenched his fists. If they kill you, they kill me too. I will not run. The dragon's eyes softened for a moment, but then the air split with a metallic shriek. The hunters had entered the cave. Their boots struck the stone floor in rhythm, heavy and cruel. They came in armor black as void, masks glowing red. Each carried a weapon longer than Daniel's arm, weapons that hummed with deadly power. Their leader stepped forward, taller than the rest. His voice echoed through a helmet that distorted the sound into a growl. Well, the old beast still breathes good. Her hide will sell for more while warm. The hunters laughed, the sound sharp and hollow in the cavern. But when the leader's red eyes turned to Daniel, the laughter grew louder. And look, a little insect has wandered into the lair. How lucky. 2 prizes in one hunt. The dragon's skin and the human's bones. Daniel's legs wanted to shake. His heart wanted to break, but he forced himself to stand tall. You'll take neither, he said. His voice cracked, but his words were steady. The leader tilted his head, as if amused, then raised his weapon. Brave words, insect. But words cannot stop fire. The dragon growled, her deep chest rumbling like an earthquake. She tried to rise, wings unfolding slightly, but pain shot through her body and she collapsed again. The hunters laughed harder. See how weak she is? She is nothing but a shadow of her legend. Daniel's mind raced. He was no soldier. He had no weapon strong enough. But humans had always survived not through strength, but through cunning. He looked around, his eyes catching the old mining tools scattered on the cave floor. Explosives used for cutting rock. His hand reached for one, hiding it behind his back. The leader stepped closer, his shadow falling over Daniel. Move aside, human, and I may let you die quickly. Daniel lifted his chin. You'll have to kill me first. The hunters raised their weapons. The humming grew louder. The dragon's eye burned with fury. She tried to rise again, fire flickering weakly in her throat, but it sputtered like dying embers. She roared, not in strength, but in defiance. The sound shook the hunters back for only a moment. Daniel saw his chance. He hurled the explosive at the ground near their feet. A flash of fire and smoke filled the cave. The hunters stumbled, shouting. The cave roof rumbled as stones crashed down. The dragon lifted her head, fire catching stronger this time, not much, but enough to send a burning wave across the floor. The hunters jumped back, their armor scorched. Their laughter was gone now, replaced with anger. The leader's voice was sharper. Colder, foolish insect, you dare defy us? You dare defend this corpse of a beast? Daniel stood beside the dragon, smoke swirling around him. His lungs burned, but his eyes did not leave the enemy. She is not a corpse, she is alive, and she will rise again. The leader raised his hand, signaling to the others, then let the human burn with her. Prepare the fire. Dozens of weapons aimed at the cave floor, glowing hotter, charging for a blast that would turn stone to glass. The dragon forced herself up, pain cutting through her. Her wings cracked open like broken banners, her eyes blazing fire through the smoke. She looked at Daniel, her voice whispering inside his mind. I cannot win this fight, not yet. But you gave me something, courage, if I fall. I fall with fire, the hunters fired. The cavern filled with red light. Daniel threw himself toward her side, covering his head as the first blast shook the mountain. Outside, more ships descended, filling the night sky with endless shadows. The hunt had only just begun. The cave smelled of smoke and burning stone. The hunters' weapons still glowed red, their laughter replaced by cold rage. They thought the fight was already won. They thought the dragon was nothing but an old corpse and the human a weak insect. But they had not seen what fire and courage could do together. Daniel's chest ached from the blast. His lamp lay shattered on the floor. The air was thick with dust, yet when he lifted his head, he saw her, the dragon, still standing, her wings trembling but spread, her fire flickering stronger than before. Her eyes burned not with death, but with fury. The hunters stepped back only for a moment. They had expected a beast too weak to rise. Now they saw a shadow of her true power. The leader hissed through his helmet. So the old flame still burns no matter. We will snuff it out. And we will take the human's head too. Daniel pressed his hand against the dragon's cracked scales. His palm stung, but he did not pull away. You are not alone, he whispered. We fight together. The dragon lowered her head, the fire in her throat warming the air around him. Her voice filled his mind, softer now. You are small, yet you stand where giants fall. Tell me, human, what gives you such strength? Daniel swallowed the smoke in his throat. His answer was simple. Because you still breathe. And while you breathe, there is hope. The hunters raised their weapons again. Glowing brighter, Daniel had no plasma rifle, no armor. But he had fire of his own. He reached into his pack and pulled out a flare, a tool for emergencies in the mines. He struck it against the wall, and a blinding flame roared to life in his hand. The hunters flinched. Their masks hid their faces, but their bodies stiffened. Fire, bright, close, wild, was something even their armor could not shield against. Daniel swung the flare in wide arcs, the cave glowing like a furnace. The hunters growled and stepped back. Their perfect formation broken, the dragon took the chance. Her chest rose, her throat rumbled, and with all the strength left in her, she breathed. Not the mighty firestorms of her past, but enough. A wave of flame cut across the cavern floor, driving the hunters back, their armor smoked, their lines broken. Daniel's heart pounded. He could not believe it. A human with a flare and a dragon with a weakened breath had pushed back hunters armed with weapons that could melt steel. He laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was impossible, and yet it had happened. The leader slammed his weapon into the ground, sparks flying. Enough! Do not let the fire scare you, kill them both. More hunters surged forward, but now the dragon's eyes blazed brighter. Daniel held his flare higher. Together they looked like one creature. Fire in two forms. Human and dragon. The hunters fired again. Beams striking the walls, stone shattered, dust rained down. But Daniel darted between shadows, his small body harder to hit. He shouted, his voice echoing through the cavern. You will not take her. You will not take this world. For a heartbeat, the dragon saw him not as a fragile insect, but as a warrior. His courage lit a flame in her heart greater than any oil. Greater than any healing touch, she roared again, a sound that shook the mountain itself. The hunters faltered, their steps slowing. But then the leader lifted his wrist, pressing a device on his armor. A signal pulsed through the cave. Far and wide, if you want to make this hard, then we will bring all our strength, he said, his voice cold and steady. The army is coming. The words echoed like a death sentence. Daniel's flare burned low. The dragon's fire dimmed again, but neither moved back. They stood side by side, small human and ancient beast, staring down a threat far greater than themselves. Outside, the night sky split open. Dozens, maybe hundreds, of ships descended through the storm. Their engines screamed. Their lights painted the sky in red and black. The ground shook as the first wave landed. The cave mouth glowed with shadows of approaching soldiers. Daniel clenched his fists, his voice steady though his body trembled. Then let them come. And the dragon lowered her head beside him. Her wings cracked but lifted high. Yes, let them come. The bond was sealed in fire. In that moment, they were no longer prey, no longer broken. They were a promise, human courage and dragon flame. And the galaxy would soon learn what that promise meant. The world outside the mountain was no longer silent. The hunters had sent their call, and now the sky itself was filling with ships. Their shadows stretched across the plains like black wings. The storm clouds glowed red with their engines. The air trembled with the weight of an army. Inside the cave, Daniel sat on the stone floor, his body shaking from exhaustion. His flare had burned out, leaving only smoke and the faint glow of the dragon's eye. She lay beside him, her chest rising and falling, every breath sounding like thunder breaking in slow motion. You should not have stayed. Her voice whispered into his mind, softer than before. The hunters are too many. They will not stop, not until they take my hide and your bones. Daniel leaned his back against her massive scales. His hand rested on a crack in her wing, still sticky from the oil he had rubbed earlier. He closed his eyes for a moment, then said quietly, I stayed because leaving would kill me faster. I stayed because you're worth saving." The dragon blinked slowly. Her gaze softened. In all her centuries, she had been called monster beast, terror of the skies, yet this fragile creature saw her as something else, something still alive, still worthy. For the next days, time seemed to slow. Daniel worked without rest. He scavenged what little he had, vials of oil, cloth, scraps of food. He climbed onto her wings, onto her back, his small hands working carefully, rubbing oil into the cracks, patching broken scales, cleaning wounds that had been left untended for centuries. At first the dragon resisted, she hissed, warning him away. But every time his hand pressed against her cracked hide, warmth spread, the oil sank in, easing her pain. The human's touch was steady, gentle, never afraid, and slowly she let him stay. When he grew tired, he told her stories. Stories of Earth, of blue skies and green forests, of children who laughed and played even in the ruins of old wars. He told her of fire not used for killing, but for cooking food and warming homes. The dragon listened in silence, her great eye half closed. But in the stillness of the cave, she remembered something she had long forgotten. Hope. At night, the hunters' ships circled above the mountain, their lights flashing like wolves' eyes in the dark. Daniel could hear them outside, voices carried by the wind. They were waiting, gathering, surrounding. But he did not stop his work. Every stroke of oil across her wings felt like defiance. Every story he told was a shield against the silence of fear. The dragon's strength began to return slowly, painfully, but it returned. She could stretch her wings wider. Her breath came steadier. Her fire, once no more than smoke, now burned brighter, small sparks that lit the cave walls. One night, as Daniel worked on a deep crack along her side, the dragon spoke again. "Why do humans fight for things that cannot be won?" Daniel looked up at her, sweat shining on his forehead. His voice was simple, because sometimes fighting is not about winning. Sometimes it is about showing the world we will not bow. Even if the world is bigger than us. The dragon's eyes shone brighter. She had known warriors who fought for glory, for treasure, for survival, but this human fought for something else. Something that reminded her of the old days when dragons soared beside allies who never gave up. The next morning, the sky shook with thunder, not from storms but from warships. Hundreds of them now, blotting out the light. The hunters were ready to strike. Their leader's voice boomed across the plains through a loudspeaker. "Old beast, broken wings, give us your body, or we will turn this mountain into ashes." The dragon rose higher than before. Her wings still cracked but lifted with strength. Her fire burned in her throat. She turned her gaze to Daniel. Her voice carried the weight of centuries. "They come for me, but they will also come for you. Do you still stand with me, small one?" Daniel stood at her side, his body weak, his hands burned, his clothes torn, yet his eyes were steady. His answer was only 3 words, "I don't leave." The dragon spread her wings, dust and smoke rising around her. The cave trembled with her roar, stronger now, alive again. For the first time in centuries, she was ready to fly. Not alone, but with a human at her side, and above them, the army of hunters descended, blotting out the last glimpse of the sun. The sky was no longer the enemy, it was the battlefield. The morning sky did not shine with light, it burned with shadows. The hunters' ships covered the heavens like a swarm of steel birds. Their engines screamed, their weapons glowed. The mountain shook under the weight of their arrival. Daniel stood at the cave mouth and stared upward, his heart hammering like a drum. He had never seen so many ships, not even in the great trade lanes between worlds. Beside him the dragon rose, her wings stretched wide, still scarred and cracked but no longer broken. The oil, the care, the stories. Slowly they had woken something inside her. Her fire burned again. She looked not like a corpse waiting for death, but a queen ready for war. The hunter's leader stepped from the largest ship. His armor gleamed black, his mask glowing red. He raised his weapon high and shouted for all to hear. "Behold the last of the great beasts weakened and chained to the dirt. Today her hide becomes ours, today her flame dies forever. And the human who walks beside her will be crushed for his defiance," his army roared. The ground quaked beneath the stomping of boots. Rows of soldiers marched toward the mountain. Weapons raised, their lines endless. Daniel clenched his fists. His voice trembled, but his words were steady. "They see only your hide, they don't see who you are. Let's show them." The dragon lowered her head. Fire glowing in her throat, her voice filled his mind. Then climb on, small one. If we burn together. Daniel scrambled onto her back, gripping the strong base of her neck. The heat of her scales burned his hands, but he held on. The dragon roared, a sound that split the storm itself, and with one mighty push of her wings, she rose for the first time in centuries. She soared into the sky, her wings cracked but powerful, each beat shaking the air. Wind tore at Daniel's face as the ground fell away beneath them. Below, the hunters shouted in shock. Above, their ships turned to meet her. Beams of red fire shot from the fleet. Cutting through clouds, the dragon twisted, her body moving with ancient skill. She rolled through the sky, fire spilling from her jaws. Burning ships from the inside out, Daniel held on, his heart racing with both terror and awe. He had never felt such speed, such power. It was as if the sky itself belonged to them. And in that storm of fire, human and dragon became one. The hunters tried to surround her, dozens of ships tightening their circle. But the dragon's eyes blazed with fury. She spun through them, wings slicing air, fire blasting across their ranks. Ships exploded like sparks in the night. Debris raining to the ground, Daniel shouted over the wind. "They're afraid of you, they should be." The dragon laughed, a deep rumble in her chest. "Yes, but they are many, and I am only one." As if to answer her words, the sky darkened again. The mothership moved, larger than a mountain. Its surface bristled with weapons, glowing brighter than a sun. The hunter's leader stood on its deck, his voice echoing across the battlefield. "You cannot win, beast, you cannot win. Human, you are a relic, and relics burn." The mothership opened, a weapon emerging from its belly. It pulsed with energy, a cannon meant not for creatures but for planets. It glowed brighter and brighter, ready to fire. Daniel's grip tightened on the dragon's scales, his voice shook. That thing, it could destroy everything. The dragon's wings faltered for a moment, her fire burned, but her body ached. She could fight ships, but not that, not alone. Her voice filled his mind, low and heavy. "This is the end, unless we do what no one else dares." Daniel's eyes burned with fear, but behind it was the same fire that had made him stay when she told him to leave. "Then we do it," he whispered. "We do it together." The mothership's weapon glowed like a second sun. The sky turned white with its light. The hunters cheered, thinking the battle already won. But the dragon tucked her wings, her body diving through the storm of fire. Daniel clung to her with all his strength as they fell toward the heart of the enemy. And in that moment, as the galaxy watched from 1,000 silent stars, the sky itself burned with dragon flame and human courage. The battle was not over, it was only beginning. The sky was tearing apart. The mothership's cannon glowed brighter than a sun, its pulse shaking the air and rattling the bones of the world below. The smaller hunter ships circled like vultures, their weapons flashing red. The ground was already scarred by fire, the mountain trembling as if it knew the end was near. On the dragon's back, Daniel clung to the rough scales. His arms burned, his chest heaved, but he did not let go. Around him the wind roared. The smell of smoke and melted steel filled his lungs. He had never imagined a human like him would face the wrath of an entire army. Yet here he was. The dragon soared higher, wings tearing through clouds. Her body was broken, her hide cracked, yet her fire blazed as if she were young again. She spoke into Daniel's mind, her voice raw. "The weapon will fire soon. If it strikes, not only I, not only you, but the whole mountain, the whole land will vanish." Daniel's gaze locked on the mothership, its weapon swelling with power. His heart raced. He knew there was only one chance. His voice was steady despite the storm. "Then we take the fight to its heart." The dragon tilted her head slightly, almost as if smiling, spoken like a true fool. But a fool with courage, they dove. Fire burst from her jaws, ripping through 2 enemy ships. Daniel felt the heat sting his skin, but he held on tighter. Alarms blared from the mothership, its fleet closing in to protect it. Blasts of energy tore through the air, one striking the dragon's wing. She roared in pain, the force almost knocking Daniel free. He scrambled, gripping a crack in her scales. "Hold on, don't stop." "You can do this," the dragon's voice came back, fierce and wild. "No. We can do this." They burst through the wall of enemy ships, smoke and fire trailing behind them. The mothership loomed ahead, its weapon seconds away from firing. Daniel's eyes fixed on a narrow seam in the metal hull, a hatch leading into the weapon's core. He shouted over the roar of the wind, "Take me there!" "Get me close." The dragon's eye flashed. She understood. She banked sharply, Her body rolling, wings straining, with a final burst of fire, she cleared a path through the hunters and slammed her body against the mothership's hull. The impact shook Daniel loose. He landed hard against the steel, his hands clawing for grip. He looked up at her massive head beside him, her fire flickering in her throat. "Go, human, destroy the core. I will hold them back." Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to refuse to stay with her, but the weapon's glow blinded him. There was no time. He nodded once, his voice rough. "Don't you dare die before I return." The dragon's laughter rumbled through the metal. "Do not take too long." Daniel crawled into the hatch, the heat inside unbearable. Sparks rained down, alarms screamed. The weapon's heart pulsed ahead, glowing like a living star trapped in steel. He pulled one last explosive from his belt. The last tool he had left above him. The dragon unleashed her fury. Her wings spread wide as hunters swarmed. She burned them with every breath, even as her body bled fire and smoke. Her roar shook the skies, a final defiance against death itself. Inside, Daniel staggered toward the core. His body screamed with pain, his lungs burned. Yet he pressed the explosive against the glowing chamber. His voice broke as he whispered, "This is for her. This is for us." The timer clicked, he turned and ran, the core blazed. The mothership shuddered outside, the dragon felt the shift. The energy inside the weapon surged wildly, her eyes locked on the hunters still swarming. She drew one last breath, her body cracked, her wings shook, and with all the fire left inside her, she roared, a storm of flame engulfed the sky. Daniel leapt from the hatch just as the explosion ripped through the mothership. The blast lit the heavens, fire swallowing the hunters, their fleet shattered, ships falling like dying stars. The mothership split apart, its weapons silenced forever. The dragon fell with it. Her body broken, her wings torn, she crashed onto the plains. Fire trailing behind her, Daniel hit the ground hard, rolling until he came to rest beside her massive head. His body was bruised, bleeding, but he was alive. Her eye opened slowly, dim but warm. Her voice was faint inside his mind. "You did it, small one. You destroyed their weapon." Daniel's throat ached. He pressed his hand against her cracked scales. "We did it. You gave me the sky." The dragon let out a weak laugh, a sound like the last echo of thunder. "Then remember this, human. Remember that even an old beast can rise again if someone believes." Her eye closed, her breath heavy but steady. She was alive, broken but alive, and in the silence that followed the storm, the galaxy gained a new legend. Not of hunters or armies, but of a human and a dragon. One fragile, one ancient, who together had burned the sky. Her hide was cracked with age, until one human rubbed oil into her wings and gave her back the stars.